Now we are ready with our first presenter who used to do, he was in the business that I'm in, but I guess he got tired of it and decided, you know what, I'm gonna drive for Lyft. Why not? And see what happens. And so Anthony Ponce does sort of, I kind of describe it as This American Life in a Car, or what is that other one, car karaoke, but without singing. And so that's what he does. And I don't know if this is his dream job. Maybe it is, but my understanding is that his story and his book is tied somewhat to his decision to leave a job with NBC Television and take a completely different turn and do what he's doing now. So please welcome Anthony Ponce.
Thanks so much, Tony. Tony Sarabia, everybody. Give it up. And yes, it is my dream job. So, I walked in here tonight and read my two-sentence bio, which I love. Okay, so, because it's short. Anthony Ponce is a veteran Chicago journalist who left his job as an anchor at NBC to become a full-time Lyft driver and launch his storytelling podcast, Backseat Rider. And tonight, I want to tell you the story behind that decision, because the story behind that decision has to do with this book, all right? Now, he mentioned it was like This American Life in a Car, okay? Thank you, by the way. Any comparisons to This American Life, I'll take that. But essentially what I do is each week I'll choose a topic or theme to explore with whoever the Lyft app pairs me up with. I'll ask that passenger, do you want to do an interview on this topic? And it's funny because 9 out of 10 of them say yes. And once I have all that sound or tape in the can, I will roll together a story and a podcast that I post each week, every Wednesday. And it's free, by the way, on iTunes. So if you got an iPhone, please subscribe immediately. And so leaving a job like NBC, that was a big deal. It's not that bad of a salary. There were benefits. I've got a wife. I've got a 1-year-old son. So to leave that kind of gig to drive a Lyft car without insurance, without the same kind of salary, was a major risk. And I took that risk last July, at the end of July, and I've been doing the Backseat Rider podcast ever since. So I had been cooking this idea for a few months before I actually wound up pulling the trigger on the idea and actually going through with it. And a lot of people thought I was crazy. But after having read one passage of a specific book, it wasn't crazy in my eyes. It made perfect logical sense. And the book that I'm talking about, it's funny because I never even bought it. I just listened to it on YouTube. But I bought it because they told me to bring a copy tonight. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, okay? And not so sure about the title, and there's a lot of good stuff in this book, but it was page 46 and 47 that clinched the decision for me. And here's why. All right, so in this specific section, there's like 7 items here. There's 7 questions to ask yourself. And I know we've all, or a lot of us in this room, have probably fantasized about quitting our current job or thinking about our dream job compared to what we're doing right now. A lot of times those two things aren't the same. And so Tim Ferriss in this book calls it fear setting. Okay, a lot of people talk about goal setting. What are your goals? But Tim Ferriss has this notion called fear setting, which is define your nightmare. The absolute worst that could happen if you did what you're considering, okay? And so when you really take inventory of that worst case scenario, his notion, and what connected with me so much, is that worst case scenario may not be all that bad when you look at it from a macro perspective as opposed to a micro perspective. And here's what I mean by that. On a micro perspective, for a short time, I'm not going to be making that NBC dough, right? Worst case scenario in my mind, okay, lose my job, lose my salary, lose insurance money, have to move back in with my parents perhaps. But long term, right? What could be the benefits of that? And so he outlines this whole exercise where you define your nightmare, right? So I did that. I defined my nightmare. It was not having the salary, not having insurance. Oh, doing this podcast and having no one listen, that would have sucked. And then the second step is, what steps could you take to repair the damage or get things back on the upswing, right? And so the more and more I thought about each of these items, the more and more I thought to myself, okay, well, let's say I take this risk. How long would it take me to actually get back to what I'm doing right now? And I thought to myself, yeah, if I walk away right now, maybe 1 or 2 years, I could probably get a similar gig that I have currently. And we've got some savings in the bank. That could maybe float us for a little while. I've got a very supportive wife that believed in this notion of sharing the stories from everyday Chicagoans and bringing that to the national dialogue instead of the same repetitive, formulaic local news that we're used to seeing every night. And so when I started taking this inventory, I realized one thing, and that is that it would have been a bigger risk to stay at my current gig than to leave and pursue what has become my dream job. So in the ensuing months, FYI, I still live on the second floor of my parents' house. I'm not coming to you on a pedestal saying, I hit it out of the park. I'm right in the middle of it. But the assignment given to me by Illiteracy Works was a book that changed my life. So this is the one that did that. It's changed my life. Without this, I wouldn't have gotten the invite, would I, Colleen? Probably not. Probably not. I'd just be another anchor on the local news. So if anyone here is considering taking a risk, I would encourage you at least to read pages 46 and 47 of A 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss. Thank you so much.